please say nay. The ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, council. All righty. Moving on. Item number 5 is discussion and consider action on acceptance of fiscal year 23-24 annual financial audit and federal single audit provided by Brooks, Watson, and Company. May I have a motion to discuss, please?
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Only the comments that are in the background there, which I know this gentleman will cover. So if you guys just don't want to hear me rattle on, I'll let him get to it since he's up here.
Okay, who we got? Who is this?
This is Brooks, Watson and Company.
Oh, what's his name?
Good evening, Council. My name is Louis Breedlove. I'm Senior Audit Manager with Brooks Watson. I had the pleasure of working with the city for the 23-24 fiscal year audit. So before you tonight, we have a bound copy of the report, which you should have also received in the agenda that goes over in detail the results of the audit, but I will be utilizing the PowerPoint presentation I have for you this evening to go over the results of the audit. So just click or, okay, great. So first, I do like to go over the audit processes at a high level to make sure that it's just kind of cover the bases, understanding everything that we're doing throughout the audit. So we do perform the audit in accordance with generally accepted auditing standards. And so throughout the audit, we break it down into various phases. The first phase being the planning phase, where we come out pretty much anywhere where money's coming in or going out, we're evaluating the controls that are in place. So we sit down with each department, go through their processes. We also obtain any documented processes, any procedures that they may have set up. We review those as well. And then in addition to that, we have a questionnaire that we have them complete to ensure that we're able to review each of the areas that we want to ensure we take a look at. And then we sample test activity from each of those areas as well. So that way we can see that what happens in practice is consistent with those documented procedures. From that, if we saw any issues, we would then report those to management for any concerns. But thankfully, we had none. Then we do what's called a risk-based approach. So every financial statement line item within the financials has a different type of risk associated with it. And so every year we reevaluate those risks that will then drive the type of procedures we perform throughout the financial audit and what level of detail we perform those procedures to ensure that we're comfortable with the material accuracy of the financials. Once we've done that assessment phase, we move into our field work phase. So the first part of that being our compliance consideration. So things such as bid requirements, any grant requirements, which this year the city didn't meet their grant requirements that triggered a single audit. So that would be anytime a city has federal expenditures over $750,000, that triggers a single audit requirement, which is a more detailed compliance audit over the activity for what were spent. So the city did have ARPA funds that were utilized in 23-24 fiscal year, and I'd like to report that that was a clean audit, and so no federal findings, no other findings either, and so a clean federal single audit was completed. In addition, we look at any meeting minutes that you all, we review all of your council meetings, review the minutes and see if there may be a compliance component that you may have approved, and so we would review those as well. And then Public Fund Investment Act as another area that we always make sure we evaluate and ensure the city's in compliance with. Then we move into the year-end piece where we're tying out the numbers. So we perform our cutoff procedures. We tie out with third-party confirmation wherever possible. And then as we're tying those out, we're also testing the material accuracy of your revenues and your expenses. Once we've done all testing procedures, we move into our conclusion and reporting phase. So goes through multiple layers of review to ensure no additional procedures are necessary. And then we have the report and the letters prepared for you that we have for you this evening. So this is the components of the report. So from front to back, there's an auditor's opinion letter. That's our opinion over the financials. As it relates to that item, there are 4 possible opinion types that we as auditors are able to issue. There's unmodified, qualified, disclaimed, or an adverse opinion. The city did receive a clean or a unmodified opinion. So that's often referred to as a clean opinion. And that's the highest level of assurance that we as auditors are able to issue. So happy to be able to report that there was a clean report issued and the city is looking good. Continuing on, if you follow from front to back, next is management discussion and analysis. So that's going to give you some year-to-year comparison over the financials, as well as it covers some major areas such as capital activity, debt, budget transaction, or budget activity as well, and then over future forecasts as well. Behind that is your basic financial statements. So it's going to contain your government-wide full accrual statements, your fund level statements, and then following your notes to the financial statements. So those notes are going to give you a lot of detail, sometimes charts and breakdown of what those numbers consist of. Behind that's your required supplementary information, such as your budget to actual for your general fund, and then other supplementary information such as your TMRS reporting over pension and OPEB. Quickly over the financial highlights. So this is comparing the fund balance for your major components within the governmental side of things. Fund balance year to year. That's looking a little blurry, so I apologize. But from general fund overall had a positive increase in your fund balance, 606,000. That's simply just due to being under budget on expenses, which we'll look at budget to actual here in a second. Your future capital streets improvements, we saw an increase there of 959,000. That it was just building up the balance for future street projects that and no utilization of the funds in 2024. Your family center improvements, we saw a decrease there, 1.4 million. That's just utilizing those funds for the capital projects as that's progressing. And then your general capital projects fund had a decrease of 2.5 million. 5 million of that was spent in governmental projects, and 2 million of that was transferred over to the utility funds for utility related projects. All other non-major funds, that's capturing all the other funds that don't meet the requirement to be presented as a major fund. So those are going to be presented in detail in the back of the report. Those are all special revenue funds, but overall had a total increase of fund balance of 35,000. So in line with what we expect to see on the use of those special revenue funds. Next, as it relates to your budget to actual for your general fund, first looking at your fund balance, we do look to see is that fund balance, that unassigned fund balance within your general fund. We want to see how that reserve looks and how far it can operate into the future. So the city does have a goal of hitting 90 days or 25% of operating expenses. For 2024, we were at 32%. So meeting and exceeding that goal of 25%. As it relates to the budget itself, you saw here is a summarized view of the budget. So revenues came in with a positive budget variance of 75,000. So 75,000 more coming in than budgeted. Your expenditures came in under budget by 811,000. So some may have been timing issue on some of those things, but that was well under budget from what was expected. Other sources and uses had a positive variance there of 36,000. So that's going to be things such as transfers in, transfers out, and some other minor items that meet that other sources requirement. So overall, you had a positive budget variance of 923,000. So assuming you were able to accomplish everything you were seeking to accomplish for the year, very, very healthy fiscal budget. Next is proprietary funds. So these are going to be your water, sewer, and sanitation funds. These are more like a business where all your governmental funds are going to operate not as a business. They're intended to be up and down and to serve the community. Where your utility funds need to be able to be self-sustaining to operate and make sure to be able to handle future repairs and maintenance and things of that nature. So we evaluate those differently. We look at that net operating income or loss line for each fund. And for 2024, the water sewer fund did have a net operating loss of 664,000. It's going to be largely due to some wells being down in 2024, some added costs that were needed for water purchases during that time, and other repairs and maintenance costs. So that's going to be a big part of that loss figure there. And then sanitation had a net operating income of 142,000. Then a breakdown here of the overall ending net position for each fund. So for the water sewer fund, total net position is 20.9 million. The bulk of that is related to capital assets. So a little over 17 million is related to the capital infrastructure, as well as any offsetting liabilities that pertain to capital assets. The remaining portion is restricted funds of 798,000, and then a remaining just over 3 million. And then your sanitation fund had a deficit fund net position of 90,000, and that's just due to those are admin costs that get transferred, and so that's going to be balanced out in this next year going forward. And then next, a communication letter. So there are 2 letters that come with the audit report. The first letter being a communication with those charged with governance. And so that letter has a lot of required communication that goes over our responsibility as it pertains to the audit, management's responsibility over the audit. And there are a couple points I always like to highlight from that letter is 1, the audit was conducted in compliance with all ethics requirements concerning independence. 2, we didn't have any difficulty working with management. And then 3, audit adjustments that were identified were corrected by management. And then that second letter would be communication regarding internal controls, so that if we had any finding concerns, we would highlight those there. Thankfully, the items that were there are more FYI. So there's a new GASB pronouncement that will take effect next year related to the treatment of long-term liabilities for sick leave. So that's something that's being evaluated currently, and we'll be able to do an estimate on next year. And then that threshold for single audit, previously I mentioned it was 750,000 for the year. That is now, and starting in 24-25 fiscal year, up to $1 million. So that will it's been about 10 years or so at 750. Previously to that it was 500. So now they've moved it to $1 million. And so that will just extend the possibility of or make it a little bit harder to hit that single audit threshold requirement. And with that, I'll open up to any questions you might have.
Mr. Breedlove, thank you. I couldn't be prouder of this report and getting this clean, clean report, very, very clean. Just shows how well our finances are being managed. So,
and I do want to say, working with Brenda and the team, like I said, we work with court, utility, we work with payroll, we look with everyone here from top to bottom has been fantastic to work with, super quick to provide everything we need. Has a question as soon as we has the answer to any question we have immediately. And so, I just couldn't ask for a better process as it relates to an audit. So you guys should be very proud.
Yeah, congratulations. Really, congratulations. This is great news. The only question I had for you that I wanted to ask is, looking at the audit for the fiscal year 24 budget, the positive variance that we saw at the end of the year, how much of that was due? I know that our expenditures were really in good shape, but how much did you look at any of the investment increases that happened? Because we made some investment changes this past year to get a better return on some of our.
Yes, that was up compared to the previous year, and then even conservatively being budgeted, the revenues came in for investments 81,000 over expected investment income. So if you looked at page 72 of the report, that gives you a more detailed view of the budget's actual. So for the slides, it would be difficult to look at every single line item. So that's a summarized view. But so you'll see there are some revenue items that are just over budget, some are that are just under, but in net, it was a positive variance of 75,000. And also, looking at, there was one budget amendment that occurred during the year, but was really within each department. So it wasn't really a true budget amendment. No. And so keeping that in mind, it's very difficult to set a budget at the beginning of the year and for that to be the case at the end of the year, still be in good shape at the end of the year. So to not have to have a budget amendment and still be under in meeting expectations or under expenses, it's good. It's good to see. So sometimes that may be due to timing and projects and different things. And so it just lucked out that way. And other times it's just due to, budgeting conservatively and trying to make sure that so I think it's probably a combination of both, but so the budget looks really good.
So those are some good moves to make on the
And
investment side.
Mayor, may I like to add to that?
Yes,
Comment of the question?
course, yeah.
At year end, we had approximately $500,000 worth of open POs. So sure, it looks like there's 800,000 available, but 500 of that is dedicated. 60% of that balance.
Already accounted for.
Yes, sir. So that's why I didn't recommend a second budget amendment, because we had lots of dispatch items coming up and just various progress that were
Mhm.
ongoing, and it was a timing difference.
That's a great point.
That's smart. I was more curious about the investment moves that we made last year and just seeing if they're paying off, and
Well,
it
they
looks like,
definitely
it
paid
looks
off.
like they are.
So the big thing is our numbers will be coming down
Sure.
because of these large expenditures are taking out of that.
Sure.
And then plus the interest rates. have
Come
taken
down a little bit as well.
A little
Yeah.
bit. So I was just looking at the numbers and we'll see probably 300,000 or more less in that one fund.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Any other questions?
Oh, you did a great job.
Yeah.
We're really happy with this.
I think we
So-
beat you up a lot in the committee.
Yeah, we did. Finance committee, we met a week or so ago, and they had lots of questions, and so we were able to go into it a little bit more detail. So
But you answered all.
good.
And then we came up with an answer for the one you weren't sure of. The one about why are we figuring out the unpaid sick leave?
Yeah.
What's the reasoning?
Management tool. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, great news for Woodway. Thank you so much, sir. We appreciate it very
Absolutely.
much.
My contact information is there. So if you think of any questions, please feel free to reach out. I'm always available.
Yeah,
Appreciate you.
appreciate it
Thank
very
you.
much.
Okay.
Okay, council, we need to accept this financial audit. And if there's no other questions or no other comments, I'll entertain a motion on item 5.
I'll make a motion to accept the financial audit from Brooks and Watson and Company. I'll second.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you very much. I'll call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it and the motion carries unanimously. Thank you, council. Great news for our city. Really, really good. Okay, item number 6. This was the item that was postponed from last meeting. So this is discussion and consider action on entering into an agreement with HDR Engineering to provide engineering, architectural, surveying services for the design and implementation of the Transportation Alternatives Set Aside Contract. That's number 0909-22216 in an amount not to exceed $289,724, and authorizing the city manager to execute any documents in connection therewith. Motion to discuss, please.
I'll make a motion to discuss.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. Mr. Manager, over to you.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. As you might see, nothing has changed from this background sheet from the one that we presented the last time, but I'll read the background summary, which is HDR Engineering Incorporated submitted a proposal to provide professional engineering services to the city of Woodway to provide engineering, architectural, surveying services for the design and implementation of the Transportation Alternatives Set Aside Contract. And I will first put forward that, like the last time, it does look misleading when you look at it on your sheet, saying we have 275 budgeted, and and the expenditure they're calling for is 289,724. If it's easier to see it up top, it's basically a summary of what I've met with each of you on earlier in the week. So the engineering portion, you've got the prelim, which comes in the text dot numbers here is 161,250. And your construction cost engineering is 155,5. So when you combine those, you get 316,750. That's not in here, but when you total it, HDR engineering contract, their proposal is 289,724, which is 27,000 under budget. And then if you look at the numbers and go, well, that's not, when we're talking about, it's an 80-20. First of all, we wouldn't pay, or we wouldn't get billed for that full amount up front. I'm making up numbers for easy conversation, but let's say it's here's our first bill, 20,000. We take the bill, we review it, confirm its accuracy, pay it. We submit it to TxDOT. Of that 20,000 submitted, we'll get 16 back. And we do that up until we hit that threshold of what we have budgeted is 275. The original number provided by TxDOT, their estimate is $262.58. So we went over a few thousand just to have a cushion. So with us over budgeting a little bit and the engineers coming in pretty well under our engineering portion budget for the overall project,
For the whole
think of it as 10 moving parts, and this is one of them. That's the easiest way I can describe it. So out of the 289, 724, what we will ultimately pay is $57,944.
The 20%.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
And that one engineering call, that's what we have to take action on to move forward with the project.
The way
That's as clear as mud. I can try to. It's very much a state-styled spreadsheet, so you really have to go up and down and all around, and you have to match up different parts to make it gel where it makes sense. Some of us never looked at it before.
The way I see it, of this part, it's a already approved item for doing the sidewalk. This is just a management issue of making sure that this project comes in with the numbers that it came in at. And of course, like you said, we're only paying 20% of that number and getting rebated back the 80%. So I don't see a problem with that. But this is something that I did want to talk about. This that you just gave us now, it was from June 7th, 2024.
Mm-hmm.
And this paragraph here, you might want to go over that to see how, I don't quite understand how these numbers fit in to the 1.3 million or whatever it was that we was talking about for the sidewalks. You want me to read that part, this part right here? For subject agreement, full executive execution between the city of Woodway and the state on June 6, 2024. According to the provision of this agreement, the city is required to submit an estimated financial share of 6.6 million.
I can explain it
Well,
unless
actually-
you just want to read.
Yeah, or actually, no, this is 6,000. So
Yeah,
I'm wrong.
6,000.
Gotcha. Okay.
Mhm.
I'm thinking in millions here and I'm thinking in thousands. Okay, so basically it's 22,000.
Right, so
The confusing part about all this was when we get our information on the agenda form, the total proposed expenditure and the amount budgeted, that's in our minds, we're thinking that's what we're writing a check for. Is
Yeah.
the whole amount. And because the numbers were so close, I think Mr. Russell thought, oh, we're way over budget on the amount because of the way it was listed. But in reality, the 275 is for the entire project, and
yes.
we will not exceed that 275. The 289
Correct.
is what HDR,
Correct.
what their contract
Yes.
came in.
Well,
We're just paying
Well, so
20%.
we're saying we won't exceed, but there is a caveat in the original agreement that the city is on the line for any overages.
Okay.
Again, we're hopeful, over budgeting and coming in.
we haven't had a luck with that.
Well, we had some major projects that have been under budget recently. So that gives me some hope.
Yes.
But what you're asking about in this paragraph?
I was
There-
looking at with commas instead of periods.
Oh, okay.
So,
Did you answer?
yeah, I answered my own question. But basically, I guess what I'm trying to say is this part of the agreement is just the management part of an item that's already been approved. So I don't see any problem with this part.
Yeah, it's
because-
our guide.
Yeah, yeah. And it won't be over what the initial agreement we have yet. It might be later, but right now, we're not talking about as much dollars as it sounded.
I just want to thank our staff for putting together, I'm just gonna show this off, this incredible amount of information to be able to get us feeling set up and for success. So I just wanted to thank you for meeting with each of us individually to make sure that everybody is informed and on the same page going into this vote tonight. So
Yes,
thank you.
ma'am. You're welcome. Thank you all.
Yes. Any questions? I want everybody to feel good about moving forward because I think Mr. Manager outlined it pretty well, but if there's any questions, we also have representatives here from HDR, and Dr. Kumar is here as well with his little buddy there. Any questions? We're ready to go? All right. Well, I will entertain a motion on item 6, please.
I move that we accept the agreement with HDR Engineering.
A second.
Moved and seconded. Thank you. I'll now call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. All right, the ayes have it, and the motion carries unanimously for the agreement with HDR. Thank you all very much. Thank you all so much for being here. Moving on to the consent agenda. The consent agenda is our non-controversial, routine, and budgeted items, which require no public hearing. Consent agenda is subject to being approved with a single motion. However, the mayor or any other city council member may remove any item from the consent agenda for separate discussion and consideration. Council, you have the consent agenda in front of you. Are there any items you'd like removed for separate discussion?
Nope.
No.
Okay. I don't think we have any, so we'll move on to number 8. I'll entertain a motion on approving the consent agenda, please.
I move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
I'll
A
second.
second.
Thank you. It's been moved and seconded. Call for the vote. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, please say nay. The ayes have it, and the consent agenda is approved as written. Thank you all. Item number 9 is the city manager's report. So over to you, Mr. Manager, for any updates for us.
We don't have anything this run, but we're having a short turnaround. We'll have another meeting next Monday, so I may have something in that's not in the newsletter.
Okay. Appreciate that very much.
Yes, sir.
Always look forward to that. Item number 10, city council reports. Do we have anything to share from the group?
PNC met last week, but everything just went through as they had planned.
Good. Everything running smoothly over there.
Always. We got a great,
No meeting this week?
No.
No, great. All right. Anything else?
There's a park committee meeting coming up.
Yeah. Thursday after next.
Okay, thank you. Anything else? Any other reports or business that we need to be updated on? No? All right, well then, number 11 is adjournment. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Thank you. We are adjourned at 6:23 p.m. Thank you all. Have a good night.
Easy peasy. Well, I was looking, you know, to see that.